Haaland's back, but there's still other strong options for Gameweek 13 captaincy. Let's start by building the shortlist. First up, the man himself plays against Brighton at the Etihad. Secondly is Mo Salah in a nice easy fixture against Forest, but he does have to play away from home. And lastly is a bit of an outsider, it's Kane against Newcastle at home. Salah's the only player on the shortlist that doesn't have the home advantage, but he is a midfielder so he gets an extra point per goal scored and a clean sheet point potential as well. We'll start by delving into the non-penalty stats per 90 minutes for this season. Haaland absolutely towers over the other two players, and don't forget he gets 20% less points per goal scored than Salah, and in this case 20% less points for XG as well. The same applies to Kane, and at a glance it looks like he's having a bad season, but he actually isn't. To be fair, we can't expect Haaland to keep up 7 non-penalty return points per 90 minutes, his expected return points are good enough, and they're better at projecting future return points than actual return points themselves. So don't be surprised if you start to see his stats regress, his underlying stats are definitely sustainable. That's all non-penalty data, and he's a dedicated penalty taker for City as well. But that's no advantage this game week because Salah's on penalty duties for Liverpool and Kane's on pens for Spurs. Kane's the only player on the shortlist that's on any other form of set pieces, it's just direct free kicks, none of them taking direct free kicks or corners. Now let's take a look at the probability of each player scoring or assisting. These odds are based on the assumption that each player plays 90 minutes. We'll review the expected minutes later on in the video. It's Haaland who's got the highest anytime goal scorer odds with 65%, he's 9% ahead of Salah. But the Egyptian's the most creative player on the shortlist, he's got the highest anytime assist odds with 31%, and Haaland trails by just 3%. If Haaland plays the whole match, he's got a 75% chance of success, and that's 5% ahead of Salah. But one thing to remember is that Haaland gets 4 points per goal scored and Salah gets 5. So if we were to do the weighted odds for Haaland, we'd do 4 times 0.65, which would be 2.6. And for Salah, if we did 5 times 0.56, it would come out at 2.8, which is 0.2 higher. And Salah's got the best chance of assisting, therefore he's got the best weighted odds if he plays the full match. There's still not much in it though because Haaland's got the best chance of registering an attacking return, so I call it a draw between those two. There's not much to split them on the points projections either. Salah's got the highest overall over on Fantasy Football Scout with 7.4. It's Haaland who's got the highest on Fantasy Football Fix with 7.2. Salah's actually got the best points projections overall. He's only 0.1 behind on the Fix, whilst Haaland trails by 0.6 on the Scout. To put this into perspective, Salah's average points projection is 7.25 and Haaland's is 7. By comparing the opposition's defence, we can see that Salah's got the easiest opponents by far. Something that isn't represented in these stats is the home advantage. Salah doesn't have that, whereas Haaland and Kane do. This is slightly reflected in the clean sheet odds, but it's not enough to compensate. One of the biggest factors that impacts the clean sheet odds this game week is that City's got the best attack in the league, Liverpool's isn't bad, it's just not as good as City's, and the same applies to Spurs compared to Liverpool as well. In summary, Salah's got the easiest fixture on the shortlist. Something from the start of the video that's worth reiterating is that Salah's got the clean sheet point potential and Liverpool's got a 50% chance of obtaining a clean sheet against Forest. Something that goes against Salah is the fact that he played a full match just under 3 days before this fixture. Haaland's nearly had a week's worth of rest and Kane still had an adequate amount of recovery days with 4. Either way, I've got no concerns over the fitness levels of any of these 3 players, especially if you look at the expected minutes. Haaland and Salah are both viable picks and there's not much to split them, so if you've skipped forward to this point in the video, make sure you go back and watch the data analysis because you might conclude with a different player to me. I'm tipping Mo Salah as the best captain for Game Week 13. Thanks for watching, I've got a locked in team selection video being published before the deadline, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any of these videos.